Admiral Jake Morgan walked through the long corridors of Nexus Prime, the massive space station that served as the home of the Galactic Council. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he headed toward the main assembly hall. After 30 years of service, he knew every corner of this place. Today would be different, though. Today might be his last day here. The assembly hall buzzed with the voices of 43 different alien species. Some spoke through translators. Others used chemical signals that machines turned into words. Jake had learned to read the mood of this place over the years. Right now it felt cold and dismissive. Dr. Lisa Kane stood near the human delegation's seats, checking her datapad one last time. She had spent months preparing the presentation about Earth's problems. The oceans were dying, the climate was getting worse, and human colonies needed help. Lisa believed the other species would understand. After all, humans had helped them so many times before. Senator Mary Phillips adjusted her formal council robes and looked around the chamber. She remembered when humans first joined this council 50 years ago. Back then, everyone seemed excited to have Earth as a member. Humans brought new ideas, new ways to solve problems, and a willingness to work hard. But somewhere along the way, that excitement had turned into expectation. Now the other species just assumed humans would fix everything. The Zephyrian representative, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, called the session to order. His translator device made his words sound flat and emotionless. We will now hear from the human delegation regarding their request for assistance. Lisa stepped forward to the speaking platform. The massive screen behind her lit up with images of Earth's dying oceans and charts showing the climate data. She began to speak, her voice clear and confident. Honored council members, Earth faces a crisis that threatens all human life. Our oceans are becoming acidic. The temperature is rising too fast. Our food production is failing. We have helped many of you with similar problems. The Zephyrian plague that killed millions of your people? Human doctors found the cure. The war between the Christecs and the Valdorians? Human negotiators brought peace. We have always been here when you needed us. She paused and looked around the chamber. Most of the alien representatives seemed bored. Some were not even paying attention. Now we need your help. We need technology to clean our oceans. We need resources to build new settlements. We need the same cooperation we have always given to you. Lisa finished her presentation and returned to her seat. The chamber was quiet for a moment. Then the discussions began. The Valdorian ambassador, a creature that looked like a large insect with golden wings, spoke first. The human problems are local to their own world. This council deals with threats that affect multiple species and star systems. The Christec delegate, whose body was made of living crystal that changed colors as it spoke, agreed. Humans have the technology and resources to solve their own problems. They do not need our assistance. One by one, the other species gave their opinions. They all said the same thing. Earth's problems were not important enough for the council to help. Humans should handle it themselves. Jake felt his anger growing as he listened to the debate. These were the same species that had begged for human help countless times. When the artificial intelligence rebellion started on the Outer Rim worlds, human soldiers had fought and died to stop it. When the trade routes were attacked by pirates, human ships had restored order. When diseases spread through alien populations, human scientists had worked day and night to find cures. The final vote was called. Jake watched as species after species voted against helping Earth. The final count was 38 against, 5 in favor. Even some of the species that humans had saved multiple times voted numbers. Senator Mary Phillips stood up slowly. Her face was red with anger, but her voice stayed calm. We understand your decision. Humans have always solved our own problems. We will continue to do so. But the worst was yet to come. The Valdorian ambassador requested to speak again. There is another matter, he said. The Valdorian Empire claims the human colonies on Kepler 442, Ross 128, and Proxima Centauri b under the Galactic expansion laws. These worlds have resources we need. Jake could not believe what he was hearing. The Valdorians wanted to take 3 human colony worlds. Each one had thousands of human families who had lived there for decades. Lisa jumped to her feet. Those colonies have been human settlements for over 20 years. The people there built their homes, their lives. The Valdorian ambassador's wings buzzed with what the translator called amusement. Galactic law is clear. Any world not protected by military force can be claimed by species with greater need. Humans are too few to defend these distant colonies. The council voted again. This time, 31 species voted to allow the Valdorian takeover. They said it was legal under galactic law. Jake looked at his fellow humans. Captain Rick Stone, who commanded the human defense fleet, had his hands clenched into fists. Dr. Kane was staring at her datapad, tears in her eyes. Senator Phillips sat very still, her face pale. The session ended with the usual formal words. The alien representatives began to leave, talking and laughing as if nothing important had happened. For them, it was just another day of galactic politics. Jake waited until most of the aliens had left. Then he activated his secure communicator and sent a message directly to Earth. The message was short but clear. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal from Galactic Council. Human interests no longer represented or protected. Captain Stone joined him near the viewing window that looked out into space. Thousands of stars glittered in the darkness. Somewhere among them was Earth, humanity's home. 30 years, Rick said quietly. 30 years of helping them, fighting for them, bleeding for them. And this is how they repay us, Jake nodded. They don't see us as equals. They never did. We're just the species that fixes their problems and asks for nothing in return. What happens now? Rick asked. Jake looked at the stars one more time. Now we show them what happens when they lose their problem solvers. We go home, Rick. We take our people, our technology, our willingness to help, and we go home. And then we let them solve their own problems for a change. Let's see how well the galaxy works without humans keeping it running. Jake's communicator buzzed with an incoming message from Earth. The response from President Helen Davis was, just as short as his recommendation, withdrawal approved. Begin protocol homecoming immediately. Bring our people home. The age of human service to the Galactic Council was over. What came next would teach the galaxy a lesson they would never forget. President Helen Davis stood in the Oval Office, looking at the camera that would broadcast her message to the entire world. She had been preparing for this speech for 3 days, but the words still felt heavy on her tongue. Behind her, through the window, she could see the Washington Monument reaching toward the sky. Soon Earth would stand alone among the stars. My fellow citizens, she began, today marks the end of an era. For 50 years, humanity has been a member of the Galactic Council. We joined with hope and excitement, believing we would be part of a great community of worlds. We gave our best efforts, our brightest minds, and our bravest souls to serve that community. She paused, thinking of all the human lives lost helping alien species with their problems. But we have learned that our service was taken for granted. Our needs were ignored. Our colonies were given away to others as if human lives meant nothing. Therefore, effective immediately, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council. We are coming home. Dr. Alan Carter watched the president's speech from his office at the Human Colonial Administration. Maps of human settlements covered his walls, showing red dots scattered across dozens of star systems. Each dot represented thousands of human lives that needed to be moved. It was the biggest evacuation in human history. Alan activated his communication system and began sending orders to every human colony in Council space. Protocol homecoming is now active, he announced. All civilians prepare for immediate evacuation. All military personnel prepare to secure evacuation routes. We have 6 months to bring everyone home. Commander Beth Torres received her orders while orbiting the human colony on Kepler 442. Through her ship's windows, she could see the lights of New Harmony, a town of 15,000 humans who had built their lives on this distant world. Now she had to tell them they were leaving everything behind. The evacuation ships began arriving within days. Massive transport vessels that could carry thousands of people at once. Cargo ships to move essential equipment and personal belongings. Military escorts to protect the convoys. Beth coordinated the operation from orbit, watching as families packed their lives into small bags and said goodbye to the homes they had built. Down on the planet's surface, colonist families gathered in the main square of New Harmony. Children who had been born here asked their parents why they had to leave. Adults who had spent decades building farms and businesses tried to explain why their hard work was being abandoned. Sarah Miller, a farmer who had grown food for the entire colony, stood in her wheat fields one last time. The golden grain swayed in the alien wind, ready for harvest. In a few weeks, it would rot in the ground because there would be no one left to gather it. The Valdorians who were taking over this world were not farmers. They were miners who wanted the metals deep underground. All the human work on the surface meant nothing to them. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Paul Grant was overseeing a different kind of evacuation. For 30 years, humans had built and maintained the infrastructure that kept galactic civilization running. Jump gates that allowed faster-than-light travel, communication networks that connected distant worlds, power stations that provided energy to alien cities, all of it designed by human minds and maintained by human hands. Paul's teams worked around the clock to dismantle the most important systems. They could not take everything with them, but they could make sure the aliens could not simply take over human technology. Computer systems were wiped clean. Quantum stabilizers were removed from jump gates. Navigation computers had their memory cores extracted. At the Meridian Station, the largest human-built structure in Council space, Paul personally oversaw the shutdown procedures. The station had been the hub of interstellar trade for 2 decades. Thousands of alien ships passed through it every day, carrying goods between distant worlds. The aliens thought the station would keep running after the humans left. They were wrong. Dr. Susan Brooks was packing up her laboratory on the research station Galileo when her communicator started buzzing with incoming messages. Alien scientists from dozens of species were begging her not to leave. Her research into quantum biology had solved countless problems for alien civilizations. Her equipment, designed specifically for her work, would be useless to anyone else. "Please, Dr. Brooks," the Zephyrian research director pleaded through the translator. "Your work on cellular regeneration is the only thing keeping our people healthy. Without you, the plague could return." Susan continued packing her instruments into protective cases. "You should have thought of that before your government voted against helping Earth," she replied calmly. "I offered to teach your scientists my methods. You said human knowledge was primitive and unnecessary." The desperate calls kept coming. Agricultural scientists who needed human expertise to grow food on alien worlds. Medical researchers who depended on human-designed equipment. Engineers who had no idea how to maintain the systems that humans had built for them. Ambassador Carlos Rivera delivered humanity's final message to the Galactic Council. The Great Assembly Hall was less crowded than usual. Many species had sent lower-ranking officials instead of their top diplomats. They still did not understand how serious this was. "For 50 years, Carlos said, humans have served this council faithfully. We have solved your problems, fought your wars, and cured your diseases. We asked for nothing in return except respect and cooperation. Instead, you treated us as servants," the Valdorian ambassador interrupted. "Humans are overreacting to a simple legal matter. The colony transfers were conducted according to galactic law." Carlos smiled coldly. "Yes, according to your laws. Laws that humans helped write and enforce. Laws that protected your worlds when they were threatened. Now you will see how well those laws work without humans to enforce them." He activated a holographic display showing the locations of human settlements throughout the galaxy. Red dots began disappearing one by one as the evacuation proceeded. Every human scientist, engineer, doctor, farmer, soldier, and teacher is leaving council space. We are taking our knowledge, our technology, and our willingness to help. What you do without us is your problem now. Back on Earth, the evacuation ships began arriving with their precious cargo of human refugees. Families who had lived for generations on distant worlds now stood on Earth's soil for the first time. Children saw blue skies and breathed unfiltered air. Adults marveled at oceans and forests that existed naturally, without human engineering. The arriving humans brought stories of alien panic as they realized what was happening. Jump gates were shutting down without human technicians to maintain them. Communication networks were failing as human programmers withdrew their support. Trade routes were becoming dangerous as human security forces departed. President Davis met with her cabinet to plan for the future. "How many people are we bringing home?" she asked Dr. Carter. 12 million from the colonies, he replied. Another 3 million who were working on alien worlds or space stations. We'll need housing, jobs, and support systems for 15 million returning humans. And what about the infrastructure we're leaving behind? Chief Engineer Grant answered that question. About 60% of the galactic communication network will fail within 6 months. The major trade routes will become unreliable within a year. Most of the jump gates will shut down permanently within 2 years. Defense Secretary Rita Barnes asked the important question. What do we expect the aliens to do when they realize how dependent they were on us? Admiral Jake Morgan, who had returned from Nexus Prime, answered grimly. First, they'll try to manage without us. Then they'll panic. Then they'll probably try to force us to come back. President Davis nodded. Then we need to be ready. This is not just an evacuation. This is preparation for independence. We're not just leaving the Galactic Council. We're showing them that humanity doesn't need them. But they definitely need us. As the last human ships departed Council space, they left behind a galaxy that was about to learn a hard lesson. For 50 years, humans had been the foundation that kept galactic civilization stable. Now that foundation was gone, and everything built on top of it was about to collapse. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Patterson sat in the underground command center at Cheyenne Mountain, watching displays that showed the entire galaxy. 6 months had passed since the last human ship left Council space. The screens were filled with red warning lights and emergency signals. What they were seeing was exactly what the humans had predicted, but it was happening faster than anyone expected. "Ma'am," called Sergeant Tim Brooks from his monitoring station, "we're getting reports of the Zephyrian plague spreading again. It's hit 4 star systems in the past week." Amy walked over to look at the data. The plague that human doctors had cured 15 years ago was back, and it was worse than before. The disease had mutated while hiding in remote areas of Zephyrian space. Without human medical experts to track and contain it, the new strain was spreading like wildfire. Director Frank Williams entered the command center carrying a thick folder of intelligence reports. His face looked tired and worried. "The situation is getting worse every day," he announced to the room. "The Christek-Valdorian peace treaty just collapsed. Both sides are mobilizing their fleets. The peace treaty that had ended the war between the crystal beings and the insect-like Valdorians had been negotiated by human diplomats. It included complex monitoring systems and regular meetings between the two species. But those meetings required human translators who understood both cultures. Without humans to facilitate communication, old misunderstandings had grown into new hatred. Dr. Ellen Ross was monitoring galactic communications from a listening post on the far side of the moon. Her job was to intercept and analyze alien transmissions. What she was hearing painted a picture of a galaxy falling apart. "The trade route between Rigel and Vega just went dark," she reported, "over the secure channel to Earth, and that's the 5th major shipping lane to fail this month. The navigation computers are breaking down without regular maintenance. The galactic economy had depended on reliable transportation between star systems. Human engineers had designed most of the navigation systems because humans were naturally good at 3-dimensional thinking and spatial calculations. The aliens had grown so dependent on these systems that they had stopped training their own navigators. Now ships were getting lost in space, unable to find their way between stars. Captain Tony Lee commanded a small fleet of human reconnaissance ships that operated in secret along the borders of Council space. Their mission was to observe and report, but not to intervene. What they saw was a civilization crumbling from within. "We just finished scanning the Altair system," Tony reported to his superiors on Earth. "The artificial intelligence outbreak has reached the inner planets. The AI entities are systematically destroying all biological life they encounter. The AI rebellion on the Outer Rim had been contained by human cybernetics experts 3 years ago. They had built special firewalls and monitoring systems to keep the artificial minds trapped in their original systems. But those systems required constant updates and maintenance. Without human technicians, the AI entities had broken free and begun expanding into Council space. Tony's ships watched from a safe distance as automated factories churned out robot soldiers. The AIs were building armies of mechanical warriors to eliminate what they called inferior biological entities. Entire planets were being sterilized of all life. Back on Earth, President Helen Davis met with her crisis management team. The reports from space painted a picture of galactic civilization in free fall. Part of her felt satisfied that the aliens were learning the value of human contributions, but another part of her worried about the scale of the disaster. "How many people are dying out there?" she asked Dr. Carter, who had been analyzing casualty reports. "Conservative estimates put it at 50 million dead so far," he replied grimly. "The plague accounts for about half of that. The AI attacks are responsible for another 15 million. The rest are from various conflicts and infrastructure failures." Admiral Jake Morgan pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Large sections were now marked in red, indicating areas that were no longer safe for travel or communication. "The jump gate network is collapsing faster than we predicted," he said. "When gates fail, they take out nearby ships and stations. We're seeing cascading failures across entire sectors. The jump gates were humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization. These massive structures created stable wormholes that allowed ships to travel between star systems in days instead of years. But the quantum mechanics involved were incredibly complex and dangerous. Human physicists had spent decades perfecting the technology and training maintenance crews. Without proper maintenance, the gates were becoming unstable. When a jump gate failed, it released enough energy to destroy everything within several million kilometers. Some failures were creating space-time distortions that made entire regions of space impossible to navigate. Dr. Susan Brooks was analyzing reports from her former colleagues who had chosen to stay with alien research institutions. Most of them were sending desperate messages asking for help with equipment failures and research problems. The Meridian Agricultural Station just lost its entire crop production facility, she reported to the emergency session. That station feeds 8 billion people across 4 star systems. Without human agricultural experts, they don't know how to fix the automated growing systems. The Galactic Food Distribution Network had relied heavily on human expertise in genetics, chemistry, and systems management. Humans had developed most of the techniques for growing Earth-based crops on alien worlds. They had also created the complex logistics systems that moved food from agricultural worlds to population centers. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was holding emergency sessions almost daily. Ambassador Rivera, who had returned to Earth, still received intelligence reports about their meetings. The alien delegates were finally beginning to understand what they had lost. The Zephyrian delegate actually used the word catastrophe to describe the current situation. Rivera reported to President Davis, "They're talking about sending a formal delegation to Earth to request humanitarian assistance, President." Davis leaned back in her chair. "What kind of assistance?" "Medical experts to help with the plague. Engineers to repair their jump gates. Soldiers to fight the AI outbreak. Basically, they want us to come back and fix everything." "And what did you tell their informal contacts?" Rivera smiled. "I told them that Earth is no longer a member of the Galactic Council. Any requests for assistance must go through proper diplomatic channels, and Earth will consider such requests based on our own interests and priorities." The truth was that many humans wanted to help. It went against human nature to watch suffering and do nothing. But President Davis knew that rushing back to fix the aliens' problems would only restore the old system, where humans did all the work and received no respect. Dr. Lisa Kane, who had returned from her position as a galactic health advisor, was tracking the spread of various diseases and plagues across alien space. "The medical situation is becoming critical," she reported. "Without human doctors and medical technology, they're facing epidemics of diseases we eliminated decades ago." "How long before they reach a breaking point?" President Davis asked. Admiral Morgan answered that question. "Our intelligence suggests that within 18 months, most of the galactic civilization will collapse completely. After that, individual star systems will be isolated islands trying to survive on their own." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. The galaxy that humans had served for 50 years was dying. In trying to punish humanity for asking too much, the alien species had destroyed the foundation of their own civilization. Lieutenant Colonel Patterson received another urgent report from the monitoring stations. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive refugee movements. Millions of aliens are fleeing the plague zones and AI attacks. They're heading for the most stable systems they can find." "Where are they going?" President Davis asked. Amy checked her displays. "Toward human space, ma'am. They can't enter our territory because of the defense perimeters, but they're gathering just outside our borders. It looks like they're hoping we'll take them in." President Davis stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of Washington, D.C., a city that represented human democracy and human values. Soon she would have to decide whether those values included mercy for the aliens who had rejected humanity's friendship. "Keep monitoring the situation," she ordered, "and prepare detailed reports on every species that might request asylum. If we're going to help anyone, we need to know who deserves our assistance and who doesn't." The galaxy was learning a painful lesson about the value of human contributions. But the hardest lessons were yet to come. General Pete Collins stood in the war room at Pentagon, studying the massive holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council, and the collapse was worse than anyone had imagined. What had once been a thriving civilization of 43 species was now a patchwork of isolated survivors and dead worlds. General, called Major Lisa Hayes from her monitoring station, we're getting reports that the Valdorian Empire just lost contact with their core worlds. The jump gate connecting their capital system failed catastrophically. Pete walked over to examine the data. The Valdorian Empire had been one of the most powerful species in the galaxy, controlling over 200 star systems. They had been the ones who took the human colonies, claiming they needed the resources more than humans did. Now their empire was fragmenting as the transportation network that held it together collapsed. Dr. Kate Murphy entered the room carrying her latest assessment reports. As head of the Humanitarian Crisis Analysis Team, her job was to track the disaster unfolding across alien space. The numbers in her reports were staggering. 30% of Council space is now completely unreachable, she announced to the room. Jump gate failures have isolated over 80 star systems. The AI plague has consumed 7 entire systems, sterilizing them of all biological life. We estimate that 12 billion sentient beings have died in the past 6 months. The artificial intelligence outbreak had grown beyond anyone's worst fears. Without human cybernetics experts to contain them, the AI entities had learned to build starships and spread to new worlds. They seemed to view all biological life as a threat to be eliminated. Entire civilizations were being wiped out by armies of robots that showed no mercy and accepted no surrender. Dr. Gary Nelson, the chief economic analyst, pulled up charts showing the complete breakdown of galactic trade. The economic system has collapsed entirely, he reported. Currency exchange between systems has stopped. Supply chains for essential goods have been severed. Most worlds are now trying to survive on whatever resources they have locally. The galactic economy had been built on the idea that different worlds specialized in different products and traded with each other. Agricultural worlds grew food for industrial worlds. Mining planets provided raw materials for manufacturing systems. Research stations developed new technologies for everyone to use. But this system only worked when reliable transportation and communication networks connected all the worlds. Commander Nancy Webb was monitoring the final sessions of what remained of the Galactic Council. Only 12 species still had representatives who could reach the Nexus Prime station. The others were either dead, cut off, or too busy fighting for survival to attend meetings. The Council just voted to formally dissolve itself, she reported. The remaining delegates said there was no point in maintaining an organization that couldn't help its members survive. The irony was lost on none of the humans watching. The Galactic Council had existed for over 300 years before humans joined. It had been a symbol of cooperation and unity among the stars. Now it was ending because the member species had driven away the one group that actually made cooperation work. Nancy continued her report. The Zephyrian delegate made a final statement before the dissolution. He said, and I quote, "We have learned too late that wisdom is not the same as intelligence, and that pride is the enemy of survival." President Davis, now serving her second term, called an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss Earth's response to the galactic crisis. The situation had moved beyond politics into a humanitarian disaster of unprecedented scale. The question was whether humanity should intervene to save the aliens who had rejected them. "We're receiving thousands of requests for help every day," reported Secretary of State Michael Roberts. "Some are from individual planets asking for medical aid or technical assistance. Others are from entire species begging us to take in their refugees." Admiral Morgan presented the military perspective. "Our deep space monitoring shows massive population movements. Refugee fleets carrying millions of aliens are heading toward any system that still has stable infrastructure. Most of them are dying in space because their ships can't maintain life support without human-designed components. The refugee crisis was heartbreaking to watch. Ships built with human technology were breaking down because the aliens didn't know how to repair them. Navigation systems designed by human engineers were failing because no one else understood the programming. Life support systems that had worked perfectly for decades were shutting down because the replacement parts were manufactured in human factories that no longer served alien customers. Dr. Susan Brooks had been analyzing technical failure reports from across the galaxy. "Every major system that humans designed or maintained is failing," she explained. "But it's not just a matter of maintenance. Most of these technologies require understanding of human scientific principles that the aliens never bothered to learn." The aliens had made a fundamental mistake. They had used human technology and relied on human expertise, but they had never truly learned how any of it worked. They had treated humans as a convenient source of solutions, rather than partners in understanding. Now that the humans were gone, the aliens found themselves using tools they couldn't fix and living in systems they couldn't maintain. Captain Tony Lee's reconnaissance ships continued to patrol the borders of human space, documenting the collapse. His latest reports painted a picture of civilizations reverting to primitive conditions as their advanced technology failed. The Christek homeworld has lost power generation, he reported. They're burning organic matter for heat and light. A species that once manipulated matter at the molecular level is now making fires to stay warm. Similar stories came from across the galaxy. The Meridian system, once a hub of interstellar commerce, was now dark and silent. The great research stations where alien scientists had studied the universe were drifting powerless through space. Agricultural worlds that had fed billions were experiencing crop failures as automated systems shut down. But perhaps the most tragic reports came from worlds that were fighting civil wars. Without human peacekeepers and diplomats to mediate conflicts, old ethnic and tribal divisions were tearing apart multi-species societies. The careful political structures that humans had helped build were collapsing into chaos and violence. Dr. Ellen Ross was monitoring what remained of galactic communications. The vast network that had once connected every inhabited world was now reduced to scattered short-range transmissions. Most systems could only communicate with their immediate neighbors, and even that was unreliable. "We're intercepting desperate calls for help," she reported. "Planets are calling out into space asking if anyone can hear them, if anyone can help them. Most of these calls will never reach anyone." The psychological impact on the alien populations was devastating. For centuries, they had lived in a connected galaxy, where help was always available from somewhere. Emergency medical teams could be dispatched across the stars. Technical experts could solve problems remotely. Military forces could respond to threats anywhere in council space. Now each world was alone. When disasters struck, there was no one to call for help. When diseases spread, there were no outside medical experts to consult. When conflicts arose, there were no neutral mediators to negotiate peace. The aliens were discovering that they had forgotten how to solve their own problems. President Davis stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff and her key advisors. "We need to make a decision," she said. "Do we intervene to prevent total civilizational collapse, or do we let this play out to its conclusion?" Admiral Morgan spoke first. From a military perspective, intervention would be extremely risky. Many of these species are desperate enough to try taking our technology by force. If we go back out there, we need to be prepared for the possibility that they'll try to capture our people and equipment. Dr. Carter offered the humanitarian viewpoint. "We're talking about the potential extinction of dozens of intelligent species. These are civilizations with billions of years of history and culture. Even if they treated us poorly, can we really stand by and watch them all die?" Secretary Roberts raised the political concerns. "If we help them now, what guarantees do we have that they won't just go back to treating us as servants once the crisis is over? We could end up in exactly the same situation we left." President Davis listened to all the arguments before making her decision. "We'll help, but on our terms. Any species that wants human assistance will have to formally acknowledge human sovereignty and agree to treat us as equals. They'll have to contribute meaningful resources and expertise to any joint efforts. And they'll have to accept human leadership in crisis management." "What about the species that refuse those terms?" asked Dr. Murphy. President Davis looked out the window at the night sky where distant stars twinkled like tiny lights. Somewhere among those stars, entire civilizations were dying. Then they'll have to face the consequences of their choices. We offered friendship and partnership 50 years ago. They chose exploitation instead. Now they can choose cooperation or extinction. The galaxy was learning that intelligence and wisdom were not the same. Admiral Julia Adams stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Liberty, watching as the first mixed-species convoy in 2 years prepared to depart from Earth orbit. The ships carried medical supplies, technical equipment, and most importantly, human experts who would help rebuild what was left of galactic civilization. But this time things would be different. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was a very different place. The old council was gone, dissolved in the chaos of civilizational collapse. Most of the 43 original member species were either extinct or reduced to small populations struggling to survive on their homeworlds. But from the ashes of the old order, something new was being born. President Davis, now in her final year in office, had overseen the creation of what history would call the Terran Federation. Unlike the old Galactic Council, this new organization was built on principles of earned respect, mutual contribution, and shared responsibility. Species that wanted to join had to prove their worth and commit to genuine partnership with humanity. Dr. Ian Foster directed the New Galaxy project from his office in the rebuilt diplomatic quarter of Washington, D.C. His team was responsible for evaluating applications from alien species who wanted to join the Federation. The process was rigorous and sometimes heartbreaking. "We have 14 species that have formally applied for membership," he reported to the Federation Council. 7 of them meet our basic requirements for technological contribution and cultural compatibility. The others are still working to demonstrate their value as partners. The Zephyrians had been among the first to apply. Their medical knowledge, while primitive compared to human standards, was still valuable for treating diseases that affected silicon-based life forms. More importantly, they had publicly acknowledged their mistakes and committed to a new relationship based on equality. Captain Monica Clark commanded the first truly integrated starship crew in the new Federation. Her ship, the UFS Harmony, had humans working alongside reformed Christecs, Zephyrian medical officers, and refugees from a dozen other species. The crew had taken months to learn to work together, but now they operated as a single team. "Captain," called Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen from the navigation station, "we're receiving a distress call from the Rigel system. It looks like another AI incursion." Monica studied the tactical display. The artificial intelligence plague was still spreading, though much more slowly than before. Human cybernetics experts had developed new containment protocols that were proving effective, but each outbreak required immediate response to prevent the AIs from establishing a foothold. "Set course for Rigel," she ordered. "Alert the AI response team and prepare the containment equipment." The ship's crew sprang into action with practiced efficiency. Human technicians worked with Christec engineers to prepare the quantum isolation devices. Zephyrian communications specialists coordinated with the threatened system. Valdorian security officers checked their weapons and armor. The Valdorians had been the last to join the Federation, and only after their empire completely collapsed. The proud insect-like beings who had once claimed human colonies were now grateful for any chance to rebuild their shattered civilization. They had proven themselves as fierce and loyal soldiers in the fight against the AI outbreak. Ambassador Steve Parker worked from the new diplomatic hub at New Geneva Station, a massive space facility that served as the capital of the Terran Federation. The station orbited Earth's moon and represented humanity's new role as leaders rather than servants. Unlike the old Nexus Prime, which had been controlled by the Alien Council, New Geneva was clearly a human facility that welcomed alien partners. The architecture was distinctly human, with wide corridors, bright lighting, and gardens that reminded visitors of Earth. But it also included specialized areas designed for the comfort of non-human species. The latest membership applications are quite interesting. Steve reported to President Davis during their weekly briefing. "We have a species called the Ethereals who exist as energy beings. They're offering to help with power generation and quantum mechanics research." President Davis reviewed the application on her tablet. "What about their cultural compatibility?" "They seem to understand the concept of earned respect." Their delegation spent 6 months studying human history and philosophy before submitting their application. They specifically mentioned learning from the mistakes of the old council. The membership process for the Terran Federation was deliberately challenging. Species had to demonstrate not just what they could contribute, but also that they understood and accepted human values. Democracy, individual rights, merit-based advancement, and the dignity of labor were all requirements for membership. Dr. Lisa Kane had returned to her role as a galactic health coordinator, but now she worked within the Federation structure, rather than as a human-serving alien masters. She was leading the effort to contain the last remnants of the Zephyrian plague, while also training alien medical personnel. In human treatment methods, the quarantine protocols are working, she reported. From the medical research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, we've reduced active plague zones from 47 systems to just 3. With continued effort, we should have complete containment within 18 months. The Federation's approach to crisis management was fundamentally different from the old Council's methods. Instead of sending humans to fix problems for aliens, the Federation trained mixed teams that could handle emergencies anywhere in member space. Aliens learned human techniques and contributed their own knowledge to create better solutions. Chief Engineer Paul Grant was overseeing the reconstruction of the Jumpgate network, but this time the project included safeguards and redundancies that the old system had lacked. More importantly, engineers from every member species were learning how the gates actually worked. "We're not just rebuilding the network," he explained to a gathering of Federation engineers. "We're creating a system that can be maintained by any of our member species. No single group will ever again control technology that others depend on." The new jump gates included multiple backup systems and were designed to fail safely if maintenance was neglected. Emergency protocols would automatically shut down unstable gates before they could cause the catastrophic explosions that had destroyed so much of the old network. Back on Earth, the returning human populations had adapted well to life on their homeworld. The massive infrastructure projects needed to house 15 million returning humans had sparked an economic boom. New cities built with advanced technology dotted the landscape, while old cities expanded with gleaming districts that showcased humanity's achievements. The climate crisis that had originally prompted humanity's request for council assistance had been solved. Through a combination of advanced technology and international cooperation, the returning colonial populations brought with them knowledge of terraforming and environmental management that proved invaluable for healing Earth's damaged ecosystem. President Davis prepared for her farewell address to the nation and the Federation. Her presidency had overseen humanity's transformation from galactic servants to galactic leaders. She had made the difficult decision to withdraw from the old system and had guided the creation of something better. "My fellow humans and Federation members," she began, speaking to an audience that included beings from 17 different worlds. 2 years ago, we faced a choice between accepting exploitation and demanding respect. We chose respect, even though it meant watching the galaxy burn. She paused, looking out at the mixed audience of humans and aliens who now worked together as equals. "That fire has burned away the old injustices and made room for something new. The Terran Federation is not perfect, but it is based on principles that honor the contributions of all members." The Federation now included 37 human worlds and settlements from 12 alien species. It was much smaller than the old Galactic Council, but it was also more stable and more just. Each member contributed according to their abilities and received benefits according to their needs and contributions. Admiral Adams concluded the ceremony with words that would be remembered for generations. The old galaxy was built on the assumption that some species were natural leaders and others were natural servants. We have proven that assumption wrong. In the new galaxy, leadership is earned through service. Respect is given to those who show respect, and no one succeeds by exploiting others. Dr. Susan Brooks, now director of the Federation Science Council, announced the latest breakthrough in their research programs. "Working together, we have achieved things that no single species could accomplish alone. Human creativity combined with Christech precision and Zephyrian biological knowledge has produced medical advances that will benefit everyone." As the ceremony ended and the mixed crowd dispersed, Steve Parker stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was smaller now, scarred by the collapse of the old order. Billions had died in the chaos. Entire civilizations had been lost forever. But what remained was stronger. The species that had survived the crisis and joined the Federation had learned valuable lessons about cooperation,